Let's talk a little bit more about the fallout from what the Ravens did and did not do during the course of the weekend. Our next guest, one of our favorites over the years, former Ravens tight end, and now he and our buddy Bo Smolka have a podcast, the Believe in Ravens podcast on the Believe Podcast Network. He's our friend Dan Wilcox, and he's with us now here on GCR. What's going on, pal? How are you?
Doing great, man. How are you this year?
Everything is good, man. Like, we're in that weird spot where, like, I know the Ravens did well, right? Like, I know because, frankly, they always do well in the draft, right? But I look at these players. I love what they did. I'm just struggling with whether or not they did what they needed to do in order to close the gap, win the AFC North, and win the Super Bowl. And I know that there's not one player that decides that, but I don't know, man. Like I'm just in this weird place where like I like the players they got, but do I think they're in better shape to win the Super Bowl because of it? I don't know.
The way I look at it like this, I think what happened last season was kind of a fluke. So you had 40, 50 injuries last season, and people forget that this team the year before was a Super Bowl contender team. If you take out all the injuries from last season, the Ravens is a much, much, much better program, much better team. So when you go into the draft, you don't need to buy a whole team. You just need to buy a couple of pieces to make you stronger and make you a little bit deeper in areas that you was lacking last year. And last year was such a weird incident when you lose all your running backs, you lose all your
Yep.
DBs, you lose half your offensive line, over half your offensive line, and half of your D line. I mean, that stuff doesn't happen every year. I mean, you usually lose one or two starters, maybe three starters a year with injuries. But last year, I mean, you're talking about the entire side of the ball wiped out, the entire position wiped out. You're only down to one tight end. Like that stuff doesn't happen every year. So once you get all those guys back and they're healthy, and then you implement the guys that they're bringing in, plus the guys that they're bringing in through free agency and stuff like that. I think we're in a much better, much greater situation than most people think we are in.
All right. So what do you make of the wide receiver thing, though, Dan? Like that's the one
Right.
I can't shake that. That in a vacuum, where they were with Hollywood Brown and him
Mm-hmm.
wanting out, I think they did well given all of that, right? Like I think
Right.
to make the trade they made and then to recoup a fourth anyway, like I think they did as well as they could given those circumstances. But it doesn't change the fact that you now look. I love Rashad Bateman. I think Rashad Bateman's a stud, but he's not a proven number one receiver in the NFL just yet. And that's it. That's the list. You don't have anything beyond that. I know they're going to run the ball a ton. That's what Greg Roman does. And I know they could still add in a veteran, but like we saw how that worked with Sammy Watkins a year ago. I can't shake that this is an issue for me in thinking this is a Super Bowl caliber team.
I don't think the Hollywood situation is as bad as people think it is. I really don't. I think with Bateman, I think with Duvernay, I think with Prochet, I think people are kind of sleeping on the type of player that Prochet is, and I think he's starting to really come into his own. As you saw throughout the season last year, he got a chance to play a lot of reps. I think this year, I think you'll get a heavier dose of that guy. And I think Bateman I think he's a big time receiver. I really do. I feel like he's maybe one, two, maybe three big plays away for his confidence to just shoot through the roof. And the Ravens are never done, and so you always got to keep in mind that they're going to do what they could do during the draft to pick up the best quality players that they can get, and they probably drafted 4 Hall of Famers probably, hopefully, knock
I
on
mean,
wood,
I was going to
right?
say, wow,
Right?
probably. That is bold, my man.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Yeah,
Hopefully they drafted some guys that's going to take this sport extremely serious
right.
and very passionate. This center, Linderbaum, the kid we drafted, he reminds me a lot of the guy I played with my first 2 years in the league, Kevin Mawai. And Kevin Mawai was one of the sharpest players I've ever seen in this league. And he was so sharp that he used to do his own game plan every single week. The coaches would put together their game plan, but he would actually put together his own personal game plan. He would type it up, everything. And that allowed him
Wow.
to be sharp week in and week out. I think the Linderbaum kid is kind of the same. I think he's kind of cut from that same cloth. If you go back and just kind of look at his accolades and look at what he's done in college, off the field, not on the field. Of course, he's a phenomenal athlete on the field, but when you look at what he's done off the field, all the awards that he's won with academics and stuff like that, he's an overachiever. So I think he's going to be the kind of guy that's going to come in to help take a lot of pressure off a guy like Lamar Jackson. When you're the quarterback, you have to orchestrate the whole offense. But if you got a great center, he takes a lot of that orchestration off of you. He's pointing out who's the mic. He's helping you figure out exactly, when the blitzes are coming. He's studying. He's doing all the things he needs to do to help the quarterback to be the best version of himself that he could be. That's why Peyton Manning and Saturday were so good together. So I really feel like the wide receiver situation won't be as big of a problem as people think it is. We will run the ball. That's why you're going to see us draft 2 more tight ends. You still got Nick Boyle. Don't forget that. And then you got Mark Andrews, who arguably the best tight end in the game right now. So I think you got receivers all over the field. You go grab 2 more receiving tight ends. They're going to compete for that third spot. And then that's going to be great competition for those guys. And then on the outside, you still got 2 or 3 guys that are difference makers. And they're going to pick up some guys in free agency that nobody knows about, that the Ravens have, when you got somebody like George Kokinis and Joe Ortiz in the back office, man, I'm telling you right now, it's extremely, extremely, extremely hard to miss a freaking free agent that's out there that nobody knows about. He's a hidden gem. That's a baller that's been balling all throughout college. It'll be somebody that'll step up this training camp that'll make you be like, oh, wow, who's this kid? So just be prepared.
Dan Wilcox is with us here in GCR. Dan, I hear you saying that, right? But I brought up Sammy Watkins, and we've seen this a lot over the years where the Ravens have added in the late stages of free agency. They've brought in a player, Jeremy Maclin, Michael Crabtree, Mike Wallace, and for the most part, these are not guys. There was a reason why they were still available at this point. These are not guys that have been a particular help for the Ravens. When they've been bold and went out and traded for Anquan Bolden, when they signed to Steve Smith early on, those types of moves have panned out, but the later moves have not. Is there still a guy, T.Y. Hilton, Julio Jones, Jarvis Landry, is there still a guy that's out there on the market that you would say, this is the guy that I would circle that name, and I would be aggressive to add that guy into this mix because I do still think that there's someone that's capable of making a difference?
To me, you named it just now. Julio Jones, to me, is a no freaking brainer. I don't think Landry is a guy that you bring in because he don't have the top end speed that you need. When you're replacing somebody like Hollywood, you got to come up with a dynamic playmaker. Julio has to play the game. Not only that, but he's one of the fastest receivers and he has the size and stuff like that. And he's basically an oversized receiver. He's another tight end that you can use to field and great things with. And he demands respect. He's not going to be on people going to go Julio Jones. But there'll be some guys that's going to turn up. You still got all the way to the trade deadline to make this thing happen, right? So by the time this thing is all said and done, they'll find the right guy that'll be a perfect fit for this offensive scheme and for their quarterback that their quarterback will be comfortable with. Antonio Brown is still out there as well. Who wants that problem?
Yeah, I'd be really surprised.
I hear you.
I hear you. And Odell Beckham's out there too, right? And we know he's coming off an injury, so I don't know when he'd be available. And Dan, admittedly, I was the guy that was like, I don't think I want to do that last year. And as it turns out, he was a monster and a big part of why the Rams won the Super Bowl. So I'm not dismissive of it.
Odell is a special guy. I think he gets such a bad rep because he is a little bit flamboyant. He got the blonde hair, the curly stuff on top of his head. He dances all the freaking time. He's on social media doing some stuff like that. But I think he gets really a bad rep. I think he's a great teammate. I've never heard a teammate complain about the type of guy that he is. All receivers are going to want the ball. So to me, that's not an issue for somebody saying to give me the ball. If you're a receiver and you don't want the ball, it's something wrong with you. I was a tight end that wanted the freaking ball, and I played my role. I think he's at that point in time in his career where he's more of a high profile role player.
I hear you, and look, I'm not saying no to it. I'm not. I just don't. I think the health thing is the bigger question. Where is he, and when could he be ready to go? And is this, would he be happy to come in and do exactly what you're talking about? And particularly given we know. So let's move into the transition to this, Dan, because we know it's part of the reason why Hollywood Brown wanted out is this offense. And you look at the Ravens drafting another couple of tight ends in this draft, and there's a lot of people that say, hey, this is them declaring very loudly that this offense, they're going to do everything in their power to make it look like 2019 again. And, Lamar Jackson was the MVP of the league in 2019. The Ravens had the number 1 offense in football in 2019, but it wasn't because they were throwing the ball to wide receivers, right? They were running the ball, and they were throwing it to tight ends when they threw it. Are you as convinced as everyone else that what they've done in letting Hollywood Brown go and not prioritizing receiver, but seeming to prioritize tight end again, is a declaration that they want to get back to 3 tight ends on the field as much as possible, run, run, run like hell, and shove the ball down teams' throats the way they did in 2019.
Absolutely. I think you got a prolific quarterback in Lamar Jackson that could not only use his arm to beat you, but use his legs and his brain as well. So, um, for a guy like him to raise the greatness when you had 3 Pro Bowl caliber tight ends on the team, I mean, to me, that's the blueprint. Like why would you stay away from the blueprint? I can't say enough about last season. When you have everybody hurt, it really limits who you are and what you can do. And then you're scared that these guys are not going to be able to perform in all these different positions they're playing in. I mean, guys was playing out of position all over the field last year. And all your key elements of the offense were out hurt. I mean, even your quarterback got hurt last year. So I mean, you have to protect him as best you can by bringing in 2 more tight ends. Now you put yourself in a situation where you can go 3 tights or 4 tights, and now what happens is you could protect the quarterback if you want to, by keeping extra guys in to block, or you could put those guys out on routes, and then you got to have mismatches with DBs and linebackers trying to cover them. So that's the whole key to what the offense was so great the year prior. You had Jaden Hurst, who linebackers couldn't run with, and Mark Andrews, same thing. Safeties and corners and stuff like that was too small for him. Linebackers was a little bit too slow for him, or wasn't savvy enough or crafty enough to run with him. And then you had a guy like Nick Boyle, who was just sneakily, faster than I think people think he is. And then he just plays bigger than what he is. And, he's a heck of to me, he's your prototype tight end, what you want, what a true tight end would be, Nick Boyle. Your blocker, your receiver. He can catch it when you throw it to him. He can make plays after he catches it when he gets it. And then, he can block, extended period of time, no matter who it is on the edge that he has to block. So to me, continuously protecting Lamar would be my main priority as a staff. How do I protect the franchise quarterback that we have? How do I put him in a situation where he's not running for his life every single play and he's running on designed runs versus having to run when he dropped back for a pass?
Right.
So I think bringing in extra tight ends allow him to have a couple more guys in the middle of the field that he can dump them off to on those hot reads a little bit quicker. And I think they put themselves in a pretty good situation throughout the draft. I'm not mad at the draft at all. And I really believe that I think James Prochet is a sleeper for a lot of people.
Okay.
I think they kind of forget about that kid because they don't throw the ball to him enough. To me, he could be a Wes Welker type for you. He can catch 80 balls, 90 balls if you put him in the middle of the field and cut him loose. So I think they're in a better situation than people think. I think they need more depth at receiver, definitely for sure. I'm sure they're going to bring some young guys in to compete there to push some of those older guys as well. But Duvernay is solid. As long as he can stay healthy, he's a solid guy. I like him a lot. I like Prochet, and then I like Bateman. I really do. I think Bateman could be. I don't think he's an elite receiver like a Julio Jones was when he was in the Falcons. But I definitely think he's a guy that could be a Pro Bowler for you.
Oh, he's got. Look, man, I love Dan. I love Rashad Bateman. Like he just
Right.
as from a skill perspective, I think he is the most talented receiver the Ravens have had since Anquan Bolden. I think that's how much he brings to the table. We just haven't yet seen that all put together, right? Like he's still got to go out and prove it to be that guy. But man, when you see what's in his bag, what he's capable of doing, what his skills are, it is hard to not be enamored with Rashad Bateman and the player that he's capable of being.
Yeah, I really truly feel like he needs to spend a little bit more time, with Lamar. Like I feel like there's something that's missing there between those 2 guys. Not saying they got a bad relationship or anything like that. I just feel like Hollywood had been so close to Lamar, right? And I feel like Bateman needs to kind of take that position right now while he has the opportunity. He needs to slide on in and become Lamar's best friend, so they can figure out a way to be on the same page when they throw. They need to be throwing together in the off season and doing stuff they got to do in training camp to get better. And I think that's one of the things I think I missed out on as being a pro. I didn't take enough time to go be with my quarterback, to spend that time, the extra time with him.
All right, Dan, before I let you go, the AFC is loaded. It's nuts. It's murderer's row, right? Not just the North, but the West is insane.
Right.
This is going to be very difficult. ultimately for the Ravens to break through what is a very, I mean, this is the Chiefs and the Bills and the Bengals and Russell Wilson and Justin Herbert and Devontae Adams, and like for them to break through all of this, what has to go right for them this season in order to break through what is an overwhelming at this point AFC?
I think the Ravens just got to be them. They got to play their game all year. Of course, they're going to slow teams down. They got to be able to put points on the board. You can't win in this league without putting points on the board. I mean, not against the Buffalo Bills, the freaking Patriots. I think the Dolphins are going to fall to the wayside this year. But I think the Jets, when they got stacked, the Bengals are absolutely explosive. Pittsburgh is who they are. And Tennessee's been a contender, the last couple of years. I think there'll still be a problem with Derrick Henry down there. So I mean, Kansas City is who they are too. They're a special team. So to me, the Ravens just got to be consistent. They just have to be consistent. They got to find out a way to be able to score points, to run the pound the rock, beat people up, and play smash mouth physical football the way the Ravens have always played. The Ravens have always been the boogeyman in the league. You ask me, they've always been a team that when you go to sleep, you have nightmares about. And they need to be nightmares. They need to be terrors this year. They need to be the team that they've always been. They need to be dressed in. They need to play that Black Saturday, that Black Sunday outfit as much as possible. They need to just be, they need to be Baltimore, man. They got to go be more. They got to go be more than what they were last year. They got to stop being. They got to get rid of the injuries and get their key guys back on the field and keep those guys healthy.
Yeah, health obviously being a chief among these things. At Coach Wilcox on Twitter is how you follow him. Of course, the Believe in Ravens podcast, the Believe Networks with Dan and Bo Smolka. Dan, anything else I can plug for you, my friends?
Oh, man, that's it, man. I appreciate you guys for having me on.
It's always good to catch up with you, my friend. Let's do it again soon, all right?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
The great Dan Wilcox, former Ravens tight end.